Would you jump off a cliff to follow your passion? That's a yes or no. Let me tell you how I went from earning 6 figures as a federal political appointee, and before that, a federal contractor, to earning virtually nothing as a travel journalist. My career in law and politics was not satisfying. Go figure. I knew that there was something more I should be doing with my life. I wanted that something more. I just didn't know what that something more was. So my insightful husband, Ian, asked me a question that I'd like you to consider because my answer changed my life. What made you happy as a child that still makes you happy today? My answer came easy: travel. As a little girl, I looked forward to the summers when my uncle would visit us from London. My Uncle Michael opened up an entire new world for me, a world larger than Lansing, Michigan. And so I promised myself that I would move to London one day, and I did. My adventures began when I was accepted into a graduate program at the London School of Economics. The LSC was my ticket to a life abroad. London was so convenient to the world. You can travel anywhere, and I took advantage. I waltzed in Vienna on New Year's Eve. I enjoyed the magical white nights of St. Petersburg, Russia. I traveled constantly, and I never wanted the travel to end. When I came back to Michigan to complete my thesis, I sought every opportunity there was to go back overseas. Law school offered a semester in China, and I jumped at it. I enjoyed my time in China. I loved the food, the history, the people, and I really appreciated the opportunity to buy a can of beer out of a sidewalk vending machine for only 10 cents. So you see, my experience was so rich that after law school, I actually went back for a 5-week backpack trip through Southeast Asia with a friend I met in the China law program. So we would agree that travel makes my heart sing, yes? And I'm happy that my husband loves traveling too. In fact, I made sure that he had stamps in his passport before I even agreed to date him. So going back to that life-changing question, Ian and I opened a travel agency, and our mission was to be the resource for inexpensive, authentic travel. And our ability to find these great travel opportunities gained us media attention. We were on television, both local and national. That gained the attention of a top DC radio station who invited us to start a travel show. We thought, this is great, we'll have no idea what we're doing, but we're in. Then I get a call around the same time from the White House. They had pegged me for the appointment of Deputy Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights Policy at the Department of Education. I was faced with a dilemma. I wanted it all. I wanted the appointment, the travel agency, which was flourishing at that time, and this radio show. But we were only 2 people, and we had to make a choice. And that's how World Footprints, a show that celebrates socially responsible travel, was born. We closed the travel agency and left lots of money on the table. And I don't know why World Footprints had such a strong pull on me at that time, but I understand now. The price we have paid to follow our passion has been high. It's been physically, emotionally, financially taxing. We now work in legal positions that we don't enjoy, and sometimes require 16-hour days, sometimes 7 days a week, but it keeps the lights on, and we get to crisscross the globe whenever we want, and we want to a lot. But Don't let our lives that are filled with travel fool you. It is not a glamorous thing that we do. We work bloody hard. We have had sleepless nights. We've suffered illness. We've suffered injury. We've faced some safety concerns. The list goes on and on and on. But we've also found treasure trinkets along the way, like when we scuba dived with whale sharks in the Georgia Aquarium, or when I've tasted the Dalai Lama's specially blessed chocolate. He likes chocolate. When we've covered the Olympic Games in Rio, Sochi, and Vancouver, when we've tasted foods around the world, including some insect we had in Namibia, and we took that one for the team, so we saved you that culinary experience. And we cover the White House a lot, and it's funny that I'm at the White House more as a journalist than I ever was as an appointee. Another priceless trinket was an interview I did with Maya Angelou just months before she passed. She talked about the transformative power of travel and travel's ability to really chisel away at your fear and prejudice and misunderstanding, and to break down the bad assumptions that we often make, and we all make assumptions. I'm guilty. One assumption I made almost cost me a wonderful trip in Budapest. I was traveling alone. I met a family, an Afrikaans family from South Africa, and apartheid had long been over, but I still assumed that apartheid sentiment lingered, and so I braced for confrontation. And I was so surprised when this same family invited me to tour Budapest with them. And I had the most enjoyable time, a better time than I would have had alone. And that is the gift that travel offers. It breaks cultural barriers. It opens up our mind. It shares our common humanity. And Maya Angelou said, we feel the same elements across the world. We all feel cold and heat and hunger and thirst the same way. Her acknowledgement of our common humanity was powerful. Now, this family that I toured Budapest with, that experience really put South Africa on my travel wish list. And years later, my husband Ian surprised me with a honeymoon trip to South Africa. And it was amazing. And again, that is a gift that travel offers. Don't assume if you hear a country is dangerous, see for yourself. By exploring my interests and passions, I've been able to peer into the core of who I am. I know I'm an explorer, I'm an adventurer, I'm a teacher, I'm a connector. I know I have a heart for people. I love our planet. And with social responsibility as our foundation, we've been able to share interviews with a Rockefeller and a Kennedy about our ocean's health, with Jack Hanna and others about wildlife conservation, with human trafficking survivors and the agencies that work to fight against this horrible crime. Those interviews and those messages speak to the core, speak to my core. As travelogue reporters, we love to spark the curiosity and break cultural barriers and inspire meaningful and responsible travel. That addresses my interests and passions. Now, this has been a rocky road. We've been running an unending marathon on uneven pavement. And so you may ask, how did this thing that you're doing, which seems to have gone beyond a passion to a calling, how do you know you're on the right path? Well, let me tell you a story about my dad. My dad was an amazing, gregarious, vivacious person, full of life. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and died 2 weeks later. We raced home to his bed in Michigan, and on his last day, which fell the day before Father's Day, he was alert enough to give my sister away at a bedside wedding we staged. He was alert enough to fuss at me, something he did a lot, because I wasn't sleeping, but I couldn't sleep. And when I learned he was going through the dying process, I screamed, "Daddy!" And I began to sob. And his eyes were closed. He couldn't open them, but somehow he found my hand. And he grabbed my hand and squeezed it so tight. His nails were piercing my skin. It hurt, but I couldn't let go. And then I saw a tear stream down his face, and I realized my dad knows he's dying right now. And I felt he needed to be comforted. And so I sang to him a silly little song I used to sing as a kid, "Tiptoes Through the Tulips," the silliest song, just to try to put a smile on his face. That time was traumatic for me. I tormented myself with questions. What was he thinking? What was he feeling? Did he cry because of me? Was he trying to communicate something through that tight grip? And I spiraled downward. But I woke up one morning after months of depression, and I said, if Dad were here today, he would be fussing at me big time because I wasn't living, and I needed to live. And that's how I know I'm on the right path with World Footprints. Because our work gives my life purpose, and the travel makes me feel alive. I don't know if you can see some of the lessons here, but there is a distinction between interest and passions and true calling. Interests are those things that you love, but you're not fully invested in. I really enjoy helping people, and I became a lawyer so I could help the little guy, and I have. Passions are things you draw nearer to. My interest, the travel agency actually took my interest in helping people and married that with my passion for travel. One of my interests, photography, has since become a passion, and I'm spending more time and energy perfecting that craft. The agency morphed into World Footprints, and for the first time, I know, because of the work that we're doing, sharing our common humanity, traveling deeper to bring a destination to life, I know we're on the right path. And so my true calling is still evolving, but I've learned some things along the way to help me identify it. A true calling gives life purpose. A true calling makes you feel alive. A true calling inspires you to work beyond the point of exhaustion and still feel rejuvenated at the end of the day. A true calling is stronger than a passion. It becomes something that you cannot not do, like an invisible force just pulling you into it. These key elements are my gift to you to use as a guide. If you take where all of these things come together for you as they have for me, perhaps that is where you will also find your true calling. And the time is now. Thank you.